Hello and welcome to another episode of Soap Goes to the Oscars. This is episode 51, and I'm recording this on November 9th, 2024, just a few days after the end of America. I don't know. Anyway, on a lighter note, the movie I watched this time was called Alice Adams. It is a 1935 movie from the 8th Oscar ceremony. This one was a rental. It was only available on Amazon, probably on a few different places, but I rented it on Amazon because I had some digital credits. Pretty sweet. It cost about $270 to rent. So a little bit about this one before I give you my thoughts. Alice Adams is a 1935 romantic drama film directed by George Stevens and starring Katharine Hepburn. It's made by RKO and produced by Pandro S. Berman. There's some weird names back in the day. The screenplay was by Dorothy Yost and Mortimer Offner and Jane Murfin. I will say that there was a lot of female writers back then as well, but also with weird names. The film was adapted from the novel Alice Adams by Booth Tarkington. The music score was by Max Steiner and Roy Webb, and the cinematography by Robert Degrassi. The film received Academy Award nominations for Best Picture and Best Actress. The film is about a young woman in a financially struggling family and her pretentious attempts to appear upper class and to wed a wealthy man while she conceals her poverty. Hepburn's popularity had declined after her two 1933 film triumphs, her Oscar-winning performance in Morning Glory and her celebrated performance as Jo March in Little Women. Her performance in Alice Adams made her a public favorite again. Cinema edited by Jane Loring, female editor. Production company RKO Radio Pictures, also distributed by them, released on August 15th, 1935, with a runtime of 99 minutes. Production. The 1935 film of Alice Adams is the second adaptation of the Tarkington novel. A silent film version had been made in 1923, directed by Roland V. Lee. Katharine Hepburn wanted George Cukor to direct the film, but Cukor was engaged in directing David Copperfield. He advised her to choose William Wyler or George Stevens as director. Although Hepburn favored the German-born and Swiss-educated Wyler, the producer Pandro S. Berman favored the American George Stevens. The plot of the film differs from the book Alice Adams in significant ways. Most importantly, the novel depicts Alice as permanently estranged from Russell. The original script by Dorothy Yost and Jane Murfin ended with Alice and Russell in love, but Stevens was so unhappy with the script and the ending that he, his friend Mortimer Offner, and Hepburn discarded most of it and rewrote it by using dialogue taken from the novel. Their script ended with Alice's relationship with Russell up in the air, and it finished with a scene in which Alice goes to secretarial school. However, Berman and RKO executives wanted a happy ending in which Alice gets Russell. Stevens and Hepburn opposed the change. Berman enlisted aid of Cukor, who agreed that the more realistic ending would be box office poison, and so the script was changed into allowing Russell to fall in love with Alice and to win her over. It did seem like not the way it was going to go, that ending, to be honest. This also did star Fred MacMurray as the love interest, Russell. He was in the original, absent-minded professor and Son of Flubber movies back in the day, back in the 60s. I say back in the day too much, maybe. These are all back in the day. It's going to be a long time before we get to today. So I'll stop saying that. So this one, in 1935, there were 12 movies nominated for Best Picture. This benefited from that. This was not a terrible movie. Hepburn's performance was fine. She was a little over the top. Her character was super annoying. And some scenes just went on too long. Like the beginning, there was a scene where she goes to a party and, is trying to be sort of more highfalutin than she is and wanting to be with this Russell character played by Fred MacMurray. And they just kept showing her being sort of passed by men, like, instead of being asked to dance, all these guys that were around, they kept passing her by. And the one that did want to dance with her, she had no interest in, of course. And it just went on and on and on. And then there was a scene where she invites Russell over for dinner at her family's house. And, they're poor and he is not. So she has to like have them pretend they get a neighbor's like servant to come and serve dinner and cook dinner and everything. And it was just like, it was awkward. It was almost like a scene from The Office, like the awkward, and also in the sense that they let it go on for a very long time. Like it just, they went through every course of the meal and it just was like more and more awkward and longer. And it was too much, to be honest. So I gave this 2.5 stars on Letterboxd. It was fine. Like I said, Katharine Hepburn's a good actress. The character is kind of like I watched that Here Comes the Navy with James Cagney, and he was super annoying. It was the first thing I ever seen him in. I thought that was just James Cagney, and I was like, oh boy. But then I watched him in a couple other movies, and and actually even by the end of that movie, I didn't mind him as much. But by the end of this movie, she was still super annoying. I don't know if that was the intention of the character necessarily, but that was what came across for me. And even my wife, who loves Katharine Hepburn, was a little put off by her and the movie itself. So not the best. So far, I have, in this round, I have Ruggles of Red Gap at 3.5 stars. The Informer. I didn't like The Informer. Yeah. The Informer, and this one at 2.5 stars. And The Informer, I might even go down to 2 stars. I don't know. Yeah, I probably rated that too high for my taste. This was maybe a little better than The Informer. Not the greatest of rounds so far, but Ruggles of Red Gap was funny. But again, I think that was one that benefited from there being lots of movies nominated this time around. So that one goes along with this one. And that is all I've got. I'll see you next time.